There we go. Look at all that water on the road ahead. Nope, it's not water. It's a mirage. This is my favorite topic lately, enlightenment. In the traditions I follow, it's the ultimate goal of spiritual practice, after all. And yet, I honestly don't feel that I'll ever have a revelatory aha moment after which I'll be able to say, I'm enlightened. At this point, I don't think of enlightenment or the realization of our true nature as an extraordinary experience. In fact, I think I have a pretty good grasp of who I really am right now, at least conceptually. Eckhart Tolle usually refers to his audience as awakening, as in being in the process of awakening. But is there a culmination? Are there grades or levels of enlightenment? Can we be partially enlightened? The Mirage Metaphor is used in the Indian spiritual traditions, and it can be a helpful one. I saw a few of them on the drive over here. I came out here to the desert to see if I could notice more of them while talking about it. I know, so much for staying home and just talking to the camera. I'll definitely do more of that, but I have to take advantage of getting out when I can. It energizes me. And what I'd really like to do is to vlog during daily activities and interactions as I talk through and apply these teachings to my everyday life. I'll get there. Maybe. In both Vedanta and Buddhism, the example of the mirage is given to explain how what we perceive is only an apparent reality. The world around us, and even our inner world of thoughts and emotions, are illusory. They aren't real, or at least they aren't ultimately real. It would be like a mirage of water in the distance that we believe to be real. When we get closer, it disappears, and we experience firsthand that there was actually no water there in the first place. We become enlightened to the truth. We now know that the water we perceived was an illusion. We're no longer ignorant to the reality, and even if we see a mirage again, we can realize the truth behind our distorted perception. Similarly, our spiritual path is supposed to end with self-realization, the realization of who we really are. The veil of ignorance can be lifted, and the light of our true nature is supposed to outshine our undarkened, distorted view of ourselves, the view of ourselves as limited, separate, and vulnerable individuals. And this realization is supposed to bring a complete freedom from suffering. It doesn't have to be a salvation only after physical death or in some otherworldly heaven. In fact, in Vedanta, there's the concept of jivanmukta, free while living. Swami Sarvapriyananda describes this in a video I recently watched, but he does so while expounding on the teachings of Ramana Maharshi in one of his texts. Swami Sarvapriyananda mostly teaches the non-dual philosophy, that there's a single underlying absolute reality that we all are. And if we realize this, if we really know this, we would be enlightened and free of suffering. This is a path of knowledge, or jnana yoga, studying and reflecting on the teachings that can lead to the knowledge required for this liberation. However, in the text that's talked about, Ramana explains that the truly enlightened one, the jivanmukta, who is free while living, not only has this self-realization, but he's also gone through all of the sadanas, or spiritual practices. Karma yoga, which is selfless service. Bhakti yoga, which is devotional practice. And Raja yoga, which is meditation that culminates in nirvikalpa samadhi, or meditative absorption, where there is no mental activity, where there's a dissolution of the self and only pure consciousness remains. In the Q&A, Swami is asked if we really need those spiritual practices and can instead come to the realization without them. He answers that it's generally not possible, but in some rare cases, a flash of insight may be enough. That seems to have been the case with what Eckhart Tolle describes as his sudden awakening. But again, in the text reference, Ramana is insistent on going through the spiritual practices and the necessity of having attenuated our desires, vasanaksaya, I'm really trying with these Sanskrit words. And the destruction of the mind, manonasha. Or in other words, the stopping of mental activity and disciplining and focusing the mind. I haven't seen a mirage yet in this desert, but I'll probably see a few more on the road. Swami Sarvapriyananda also talks about the mirage example in that video, and how most of us are those that really see the water. But at least we can suspect that it's a mirage from what we've heard or seen before about mirages. We have book knowledge of it. It has something to do with the bending of light due to the temperature difference between the ground and the atmosphere above, and it causes an optical illusion of water. I mean, the brief glimpse of water I saw on the road while driving looked really real to me, and then it disappeared. And it's because of this direct experience of the illusion and seeing through it that I can realize the reality of the mirage. Okay, that's really water. But he brings a modern twist to the metaphor with someone wearing polarized glasses. They don't see the mirage at all. That would be like someone in nirvikalpa samadhi, or deep meditative absorption. Now, I haven't experienced that meditative state, so for me, the closest thing I can relate it to is deep sleep. Except with a big caveat that a deep meditative state is supposed to be conducive to enlightenment. And I would really like to have such an experience, just to even see if it's genuine what people make of it. Or am I just chasing a mirage? So, can we really achieve enlightenment without those extraordinary mental states and spiritual mental practices? In the video, this is where Swami concedes to the concept of partial enlightenment. We may be considered partially enlightened if we realize our true nature without having had extraordinary meditative experiences, or without having disciplined and trained the mind to be able to relinquish desires and stop thinking. But then the spiritual practice would have to be completed afterward anyway, because it's unlikely that someone with just a conceptual knowledge would be really free of suffering and fully identified with infinite being. As Swami says in the video, true enlightenment would be when we effortlessly and instantaneously know who we really are, just as readily as we know ourselves by our common names. Like me, I'm Anthony Maroon. I don't question that. I know that immediately. But it's unlikely that someone without the necessary practice would have reconditioned their thoughts and tendencies enough to be aligned with that understanding, to be aligned with knowing who they really are as infinite being. But then again, can we ever be 100% fully aligned with the infinite being of who we really are? I really doubt it's possible while in these human bodies to ever experience no contrast, no dissatisfaction, no matter how subtle. Even though he's lately been discrediting the whole idea of enlightenment as some extraordinary experience, Rupert Spira has previously described 3 stages of enlightenment. First is a realization of who we really are, and then it's a realization of the nature of who we are being perfectly at peace and completely fulfilled. But the third, and to me the most important, is to be established in this realization in our daily lives. It's about reconditioning our habitual ways of thinking and acting to be in alignment with that sense of peace and fulfillment of our true nature. And that's where the spiritual practice fits in, to further our progress in this reconditioning, even if we can never get there 100%, even if we can only get there partially. Like and comment if this resonated with you, and subscribe below to follow me on my journey. See you next time.